and we will see how to continuously grow when you evaluate yourself. First of all, you write an answer, okay? Pick a writing question, write an answer. Now, download Grammarly. Grammarly is the best app to correct your grammar. And once you download it, whatever you type, it'll give you suggestions, okay? It'll tell you it should be issues, it should be the lack instead of just lack. You should say a lack or the lack. And internet, you should say the internet, okay? And so on. So Grammarly is a great tool that will correct your mistakes. And if you know the mistake, write it down. You still made the mistake, remember. You knew it, but you still made it, so you still have to write it down. If you didn't know the mistake, you want to Google it, you want to research it. Again, we're talking about you doing it yourself. If that is the case, type on Google, why do we put the before internet? Google right now understands a lot of commands, so type on that and it'll tell you the reasoning behind it, the grammar behind it. You could also, if the is your issue, it's an article, you can go to articles exercises online and practice those. If you see a missing comma somewhere, try some comma exercises and so on. Okay, so that's how you learn those things. But specifically from your writing, whatever mistakes I'm making, for example, I should have said provides, right? So I'm going to make 3 sentences of provides. I have to make 3 different sentences with provides. And I got to do that for 2 weeks, just with the one mistake of provides. Repeat it 3 times every day for 2 weeks. Same thing with every other mistake. The internet, 3 sentences. And again, here, be able to, 3 sentences. With each mistake, if you do this and you do it for 3 weeks, it is guaranteed you're not going to forget that for a lifetime. Okay, so this is a major thing. People usually have the same mistakes repeatedly in other writings because they don't review it good enough. Okay, so make sure you do that 3 times a day practice for 2 weeks. Now that covers your grammar. For your vocabulary, you got to use this tool, thesaurus.com, a very good tool. What you do is go over your writing, see the words that are basic. For example, provides. Can I find a better version of provides? Well, there's many. Contribute, I could use that. Administer, I can use that. I could use impart and so many more that are advanced and less common than the day-to-day language. So that's how I'm going to improve my vocabulary. Once again, I'm going to write that word, the newly learned word, 3 times in a day. Make 3 sentences in a day for 2 weeks. I will never forget that word for my lifetime. All right. So that's how you guarantee improvement on grammar and vocabulary. You also want to look at a lot of things, for example, the complex sentences, how to use that, and conjunctions and range of vocab. These 3 things, I have included links to that in our description. Check out these lessons as well and learn how to use them. Quick note, again, because this video is based on guarantee. So what you want to do is when you learn these things, you learn a few complex sentences. Once again, 3 sentences, write that down per day for 2 weeks. I promise you, you're never going to forget that, but please do it religiously. Idiomatic expressions is another thing that I haven't explained much on my channel, so I got to do that. I'm going to make another video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's going to come up next week, and that will detail how to use them for your writing as well as speaking. I'll cover a little bit of that later on. Okay, still though, the problem is a lot of things are missing when you're doing this on your own. You cannot check your task response if it meets the examiner criteria, your structure and flow. These are some things you cannot check yourself. Unfortunately, also Grammarly is not bulletproof. For example, this thing should have been capital. Grammarly did not point that out. Also for CELPIP, this should be personalized. It should be Dear Mr. or Miss. That's what CELPIP likes. And this correction here, it said I should say issues, but the thing is I should have said the current issue, because when I say the current issue, I'm making it specific to this situation we're in this letter, in this company. We're not talking about multiple issues. We're actually just talking about one issue. So Grammarly, again, is not a perfect technology, but it does help you with about 75% to 80% good corrections. However, understanding the context is important. If you want 100% accuracy, contact our teachers. We have the best coaches. Email is in the description, and we'll help you out with your CELPIP learning and any English flaw you have. Okay, so by following these criteria, and applying them repeatedly, 3 times a day, 2 weeks, you will never forget these. First of all, I'm going to talk about vocabulary because that is important in all 4 modules. In writing and speaking, you need to use advanced vocabulary, obviously complex words and range and all that great stuff. But what I noticed in this test and in recent tests, reading and listening, the vocabulary level is getting really difficult, and that's what I mentioned in all my videos here too. So your vocab needs to be really good. If you have 2 to 3 days before the exam, you don't have enough time, so do not follow this advice. But if you have even a week or more of time before your exam, look at our vocabulary worksheets. You can check out 400 best CELPIP words to know, because these come in the exam all the time, and you can use them in your writing and speaking as well. That is a free resource. You can check it out. Link is in the description for that. We have a bonus 400 extra words, including phrasal verbs, and basically it's 800 plus words that are included in our course that you need to know. The course link, if you want to check it out with all the features, is also in the description. What you want to do is, with these word lists, my word list or anyone else's, but mine is a specific to CELPIP, what you want to do is study 20 to 30 words a day, memorize them, make sentences with them, repeat it in the next few days. The more you repeat, the better it'll commit to your memory. There is no better way to learn vocabulary than from a word list. It's a very outdated method, but it is the best method. This is still the most reasonable and most successful method to help you improve your vocabulary. So please do not ignore that. You will get incorrect answers and you won't score on your range in writing and speaking if you don't have good vocab. Okay, let's talk about reading. Okay, a lot of people ask me, because nowadays reading is getting more and more tough, so how do we practice that at home? Let's check it out. If you have been following my channel, you know I like this website. TheGuardian.com has free articles and it has free news if you're into that. But I like to practice this for my English, my students' English, and just overall for your even brain power. It's just a great exercise to do. If you implement this step, reading comprehension will become very easy for you. So you will understand how to read and get answers. You would understand how to paraphrase your reading, because the passages and the words in the questions are paraphrased. And you will understand how to summarize information, how to remember it, and just so many benefits. You keep doing this for a week or two, and you will notice your reading has improved very significantly. The article I have here is about Elon Musk visiting Gaza, okay? So I'm going to look at this little paragraph here. Let's read it, and I'll tell you what to do with this. We invite him to visit Gaza to see the extent of the massacres and destruction committed against the people of Gaza. In compliance with the standards of objectivity and credibility, Osama Hamdan, a senior Hamas official, said in a press conference in Beirut on Tuesday. So this is irrelevant. Someone said something. It's easy to understand, okay? I'm going to focus on this one. I'm going to give you 3 different versions of saying the same thing, and then I'll tell you why I did that. So what is written here, I can also say that Elon was invited to Gaza to see the extent of the damage and the people dying, because he has to look at it from a third person's point of view. Let me do a second version. Elon, or the people of Gaza, really wanted Elon to check out the condition there because it's terrible. People are dying. And if you just look at it from a fair perspective, Elon will be pretty shocked. And I think that's their intention. Version number 3. The people of Gaza invited this billionaire, Elon Musk, and they wanted him to see in a first-hand experience what has happened there. Maybe they want some sort of aid from him or something, or they just want a person to objectively look at the situation without a bias. I explained the same thing to you in 3 different versions. If the examiner now tries to paraphrase this in the question, I'm not going to be one of those students who's going to be like, oh, this was not mentioned, or the same word that is in the question versus the passage is not there, and I won't miss it. What I have done is I have understood the concept of this. I've explained it to myself in my own words, and I've explained it to myself as if I was a 5-year-old kid. If I'm thinking like that, I am just getting into a deeper version of explanation. And what that does is it helps me understand the concept, and it helps me interpret the story. Once I understand it at this level, there's going to be no confusion when I look at the questions, options, paraphrasing, and it will also commit to memory. I wouldn't have to waste time going up and down looking at the answers. So this is an exercise you can do nonstop, unlimited amount of times to improve your reading skills. And this is one thing I practice whenever I do my own versions or before my exam, okay? As a teacher, I of course practice less, but I do it at least a week's time, all these exercises to tune my brain to be ready. Okay, dive into CELPIP reading part 3. This is a very difficult part just next to part 4, which is the hardest. And we're going to cover part 4 as well in the next video, so please subscribe if you haven't already. Part 3 gives you a bunch of paragraphs. This is a sample test, and you have E at the end, which says not given in any of the paragraphs. Then you get questions. You get questions 1 to 9 usually. And what you got to do is match these sentences with the paragraphs. So you have to find, for example, whatever is mentioned in 2, is it mentioned in C, B, whatever. Okay? If you cannot find the answer for 2 anywhere, you put E next to it, which means it's not given. Okay? This is a big confusion because a lot of times you'll feel that the words are not given because they're paraphrased, but they are given in fact. So today we're going to tackle all of this and discuss how to spot not given. I'm going to give you such a simple strategy. Like if you have been trying hard on this, you're going to feel a little silly when I tell you how easy it is. And we're going to look at the main strategy, 2 main strategies that people use, okay? Strategy number 1 is they look at question number 1 and they read it. They're going to go in paragraphs A, B, C, D. And then they're going to say, okay, 1 maybe is E, I couldn't find it, or 1 is C, whatever. And then they're going to move on to 2 and then continue the same thing. All right, strategy number 2, and I'm going to tell you which one is better. Strategy number 2 is they read all the questions 1 to 9. Okay, that's a lot to remember, but we're going to get into that later. So you read all the questions and then you go to paragraph A. Read it, understand it, then you match it. Okay, so you're going to say, all right, paragraph A matches maybe 2, maybe also 4. Okay, so I got 2 answers, great. Let's go to paragraph B, read it, come back and match it, and so on. Which strategy do you use? All right, now that you have answered that, which do you think is better? If you said strategy number 1 is better, you are dead wrong. You're going to waste lots of time in the exam and you're going to be highly inaccurate and really stressed. Use strategy number 2. It makes so much sense to use it, and I'll tell you why. Questions number 1 to 9. First, we're going to read them, okay? And I'm going to first read them to show you how to spot keywords. So the first question says, park visitation is dependent upon approval from Aboriginal nations. Okay, so Aboriginal nations is a keyword. Why do I say it's a keyword? Is because it cannot be paraphrased. I mean, yeah, you can call it First Nations or natives, but Aboriginal is the main term. And even if it's not, very close words would be obvious, like you would know it's First Nations or something similar to that. Park visitation, it is something to do with visits. There are very few synonyms for visit. So this and this are good keywords. These 2 are good keywords. Number 2, regulated commercial activities are carried out within the park's boundaries. So I would say commercial activities is a good keyword. It's not as good as Aboriginal nations because this can be paraphrased in a lot of ways. It could be, they could say market forces, they could talk about buying and selling and shopping, etc. So not the best keyword, but it is the keyword in this sentence, and so on and so forth, okay? Probably the best keyword that I found among all of this was Aboriginal. Throughout, we see that, and in the paragraphs too, it mentions that. I also thought, and we're going to get to this one, I also thought this was a very good keyword. I didn't think they will paraphrase it, but they paraphrased the heck out of that, and I'll show that to you in a second. So the one thing is, when I'm looking at the questions, I'm looking at keywords, okay? Because it's impossible for any one of us to remember all the questions. So we're just looking at a few keywords. We're also, number 2, gonna look at the words that can be paraphrased, and we will paraphrase them in our head before we go into the paragraphs. This will keep you one step ahead of the examiner, because examiners are paraphrasing everything when it comes to the paragraphs. So let us do that first before we fall into their traps. I already did that with Aboriginal nations. Let me do a little bit more here about park visitation. So it could be park visitation is dependent. I could say parks timings are based on, okay, or the duration you can visit the park is based on this criteria, and so on. Okay, so I got a few synonyms here. Approval could mean many things. It could mean maybe they don't say the word approval. Maybe they say a synonym, or they might even just change the sentence and they might say, you need to get a signature of a manager. Okay, so that would mean approval. So what I'm doing is I'm paraphrasing it in my head first and looking at it from different angles. Now let's look at the whole sentence and paraphrase the whole thing. Okay, park visitation is dependent upon approval from the Aboriginal nations. Let me say it in a different way. If you want to visit the park, make sure you get a signature from the Aboriginal nations chief. Or let's try another way. You cannot enter the park unless you have an approval from a senior manager in the Aboriginal community. So any of these things, first of all, can be mentioned as it is. So if it is mentioned in the way I paraphrased it, I'll catch it instantly. If it's not mentioned that way, at least I understand the concept. Now, anything about this, anything related to approvals, Aboriginal people, visitation, I can catch. But this took me a while. It took me a while because I'm explaining. But it also will take me a while if I'm doing it the first time. If I do this in my head, it's going to take me maybe 10 seconds. Okay? Once you practice the skill and you do this with multiple questions, you practice multiple readings, you will get better at this. And why it is so important for you to do is because when you go in the passage and you look at all these things, they're going to be highly paraphrased and very hard to catch. Keywords are also not going to be the exact same. So first of all, it's going to help you if it's highly paraphrased, which it usually is. A lot of times you have to get the interpretation too, right? So this is not IELTS. This is not where a keyword is mentioned as it is. In fact, in IELTS also these days, it's really paraphrased. So we're looking at the meaning, and if we can find something similar to the meaning, you win, okay? The other thing is this helps you in memory. This is a very important thing to know. I told you to read all the 9 questions. How do you remember it? If I am not looking at just specific keywords and paraphrasing of those words, but I'm looking at the concept, now I'm able to paint a picture in my head. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm walking into an Aboriginal office, getting an approval from their managers. This is a moment in my head now. It is vivid. It's a picture. It's not just words. So if anything similar to that is mentioned, I'll be able to catch this. I think there was a mind power expert, Harry something, I forgot his name. He told us the same thing. If you want to remember something, make images of that. All right, so if you want to remember how to draw a duck, think of 2 ducks because you draw number 2 and then you can make a duck or a swan with it. So it's something related to that, which is called Mind Technique. I don't remember the book. I would quote it here if I could, but it is all about making pictures, imaginations, and using that to remember. That's exactly what we're doing here in questions 1 to 9, paraphrasing, remembering the concept, and interpreting it. So as I said earlier, I want to go to question number 9 because this is where this trick really helps. So I'm thinking here, the park is site to a Canadian geographical landmark. This should be easy to find. I mean, you cannot paraphrase a landmark. But let me do that, okay? Let me think, okay, maybe they're going to say it's the highest peak in Alberta, or it is the main volcano in the park, or it is the peak of something, or it is at the bottom of the ocean. It's a big thing, maybe like Niagara Falls. Okay, now let me go up. So we're going to read paragraph A, and of course you're going to go down, but I want to show you paragraph B because that's where the answer for this is. This is the answer right here. It includes the St. Elias Mountains, where the highest peak in Canada, Mount Logan, is located. It doesn't say anything about a geographical landmark, but it just says it's the highest peak in Canada. So that automatically means it's the geographical landmark, and it is in Canada. So again, it could be, I don't want to say usually, because it could be the same word, but it could be highly paraphrased. So you have to understand the concept of it. And that's why I mentioned all those details earlier. It helps you understand the paraphrasing, get the concepts, helps you remember all 9 questions, because you paint a picture in your head and helps you quickly answer. All right. Last thing, whatever you have not answered is E. Simple as that. Okay. So you're going to go to paragraph A, you're going to answer a bunch of questions B, C, D. Whatever number is left, it's simply E. Okay. That's how you do, not given, not that hard, but the other stuff is hard. And we have a lot of details here. I'm skipping a bunch of details because it's going to be a 1 hour long video if I do. There are some hidden parts here, some sentences, some phrases that you need to be aware of. There are more strategies to tackle different types of part 3 questions, and we have explained all of them in our course. The link for our course is in the description. Right now, reading is a nightmare for our students, for anyone who's doing CELPIP, so I highly recommend checking almost our 2 hour long video in our course. We also include 5 mock tests that reflect the real exam's difficulty level. So if you haven't checked that out, do that before your exam. It's right now at a 20% discount. Link is in the description. And if you liked this video, if it helped you in doing part 3, please like, share, and subscribe. We continue to get requests for CELPIP reading classes. It is the hardest module right now, even more than speaking in the recent few months. And this is happening because the criteria is getting more difficult. You have that surprise part. We're going to talk about all of that. But first, I'm going to tell you, if you don't know this already, reading levels, the difficulty level increases as you go down. So reading part 1 is the easiest, part 4 is the hardest, so that's the sequence it goes in. Which means if you do a good job at part 4, you're going to be good. You can save your reading mark, but if you screw up part 4, you're lost. You will definitely score lower. So in this video, we're going to focus mainly on this. I'm going to give you a really good strategy at the start. Then we're going to look at a few questions where you will see some strategies that will surprise you on how easy they are, but they will save you on the exam date. Let me talk about the extra part. So there are unscored items you get. So there are 4 parts, right? Technically, there should be 4 parts. That's what you see on all online mock tests, on our mock tests as well. But in the exam, you might get a 5th part or a 6th part, and usually it's a duplicate of one of the parts, which means part 2, which is the picture, you might get another part 2. Or part 4, which we're looking at right now, it's a paragraph form, and then you have multiple choice questions plus an article. So this format, again, you might get another article like this with the same amount of questions. So this extra unscored item could be either 1 or 2 sections. You wouldn't know which one is unscored. So you have to do your best in all those sections that are given to you, because any one of them can be scored. CELPIP does that for their strategy, for their survey purposes, I should say, and they make new exams based on assessing students' performances. So that will tire you because the exam will become longer. That's the only disadvantage, but make sure to consider every section important, even the extra parts, because you really don't know which ones are extra parts. Okay, so the golden strategy when you go to part 4, and again, this is going to solve so many of your issues, is to understand the debate. Look at the start. It says reading for viewpoints. This section has 2 people or more, usually, arguing about something. If you can figure out what the debate is, what the controversy is, you will get a hang of this. So here's what I would like you to do right now. Look at paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. Just read them, pause this video, and then unpause it after you have read the first 3 paragraphs. Okay, so this is the next part. If you haven't unpaused the video, do it now. And here, now assume you're talking to me or you're talking to a student or your friend. Explain to them what Nadine Barrow wants and what Jeff Larkin wants. Go ahead, pause the video again to do that. Okay, if you have done that, and if you have said these things, then that means you have understood this whole paragraph. So you should say something similar to, well, Nadine Barrow is more on stability, don't take risks, don't expand, have suitable lifestyle and work balance. But this guy, Jeff Larkin, is all about growth. He wants entrepreneurship. He wants development and marketing strategies. He's all about that. He doesn't care about stability. Did you say this? If you did, that means you understood the debate. The rest of it, honestly, I'm telling you, you don't even have to read the rest of it. You can, again, just go ahead and answer all the questions. You will be accurate, because that's all this whole article is about. The argument between Nadine Barrow and Jeff Larkin on business expansion versus stability. This is important to understand, and I would highly recommend, because you will notice your concentration gets so much better if you do this one more thing, is feel that you are picking one person. So I'm going to choose Jeff Larkin because I'm a business person too. I believe in expansion and growth. So if I choose to be this person, I'm now invested. Now I hate Barrow. So I'm looking at everything she's saying with critique. And everything Jeff Larkin is saying resonates with me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I agree with this and that and so on. Why this will help me, because later on, you have this article, right, where this random person comes and looks at the first article and they make their opinion based on the first article. Now, let's look at this person. He says, clearly, Barrow doesn't understand the issues faced by today's business people. Okay, this is my friend. This is on my side, because Jeff Larkin, I, and this guy, we all don't like Barrow. Okay, we all want businesses to grow, but this guy doesn't like Barrow. Now I know the rest of these answers. Now I know 6 to 10, the answers are going to be negative, anti-Barrow, and pro-Jeff Larkin. So that means the next one will be, she will likely, these are the options. You can see it's question number 6. Inspire all her clients? No, we're negative about her. Lose all her clients? Yeah, that's most likely a negative answer. Benefit and prevail are positives, so no. I'm going to pick this option, lose all her clients, and now I know the tone and I'm going to keep going. That is why I have said in one of my previous videos, make sure you give this part only 20% of the time in section 4, and the previous part, like these questions up here, you give it 80% of the time, because at this part you are reading and understanding the passage. But when you're here, you already know what the argument is and you know which side this person is picking on. Okay? Or sorry, which side this person is choosing. Picking on the other person is what I meant. Now, you can see in this answer, what happened was there were 1, 2, and 3 positive answers and 1 negative answer. Obviously, you cannot have 3 correct answers. It's 1. So the one that stands out was the answer. It's not the best strategy to use this, but it works in cases like this. Question number 4 confuses a lot of my students. Okay, you can pause it, read it, answer it. Okay. Now, if you have done that, let's go to the answer. The question was, first of all, Jeff Larkin is hesitant to endorse Barrow's new philosophy because... So why is Jeff Larkin hesitant about Barrow? Is because companies need internal stability for success. Larkin doesn't want stability. They often overextend themselves and perish. No, Larkin wants the companies to extend and grow. Companies that don't expand may go bust in a downturn. Yeah, Jeff Larkin keeps saying that. You gotta expand, you gotta grow. Entrepreneurs can become too stressed to cope with challenges. No, Jeff Larkin doesn't care about your stress or stability. He wants growth. So obviously this is our answer. We got this answer by 2 means. I'm going to discuss that. And the third mean I'm also going to talk about. One is logical deduction, right? We looked at all the options. We said, okay, this one makes most sense. So we picked the right one. The other thing is we also eliminated the other 3 options. It's not like you just look at the first correct answer and don't look at the other options. For example, if the correct answer was here, and if you're that kind of candidate who looks at just A and ignores B, C, D because you got your answer at A, let me tell you, a lot of times in CELPIP, there are 2 correct answers. One is just more correct than the other. So you got to look at the other options too. So make sure you use elimination. And the third one is what I was discussing earlier, is this option is a different tone. This is focusing on expansion. Everything else is focusing on stability and not expanding. It's more on balance, which is what Barrow wanted. So you can see the one that stands out is obviously the answer, because the other 3 altogether cannot be the answer. They're all saying the same thing. Okay, this is very helpful when it comes to vocabulary. Sometimes you have 4 options, you understand the 3 options, the 4th one, you don't understand the wording. And if you can eliminate the other 3, the 3 that you understood are not fitting the question, they are not the right answers, it is most likely the one you don't understand. The 4th, the 3rd option, whichever it is, where the vocab is too difficult for you to understand, but you know the other 3 are incorrect, then pick the one you don't understand. That is called an educated guess. Don't be shy to do that. A lot of people do that and they get the right answer. This is another trick to get the accurate answer. And that means, that also brings us to our final thing. You understood the debate, you have divided the time accurately, you use elimination, all those things. Make sure, guys, please look at your vocabulary and practice that, because recently the level of reading has gone up and a lot of things have changed. The extra parts are annoying people, getting them tired, but the vocab level has really shot up. That means the words here are hard to understand, and when you see them in the questions, they're paraphrased with, again, fancy wordings. If you have basic vocab, I would highly recommend going to our blog. Our blog link is in the description. You can type there 400 CELPIP words. You will see a list of 400 best words to use for CELPIP. Memorize them. In our CELPIP course that is also included in the description, you get 800 words in total, plus 200 phrasal verbs, and a whole 1-hour lesson on vocabulary that you should really go through, because that will help you not only in reading, but also in writing and speaking. Okay, so make sure you follow all these strategies and especially work hard on part 4. The only way to do a good listening exam is by taking a lot of notes. When they are presenting you with the audio, you have the piece of paper, right? You take a lot of notes there. If you have all the notes, you will be able to answer the questions. That's what I always say. So it's a game of multitasking, practicing that. It's a game of remembering things, and the more notes you have, the more tired your hands are because of taking notes, the better your answers will be. So you cannot write everything. Okay, there is limited information you can actually write. You need to remember a lot of things. So that's why I highlighted 2 main strategies. This is again for practice before the exam. Note taking is of course one of them. You want to do your mock tests, practice taking notes, and then look at the answers or questions and refer to your notes to answer those. And if you want the best mock tests, the one that reflect the real exam, check out the ones in the description in our course, 5 real exam-like mock tests that you should really practice before your exam. So you practice note taking, but how much can you take down in notes? It's really hard to really write everything down. That's where memory practice comes in. So this is my practice before the exam. I would listen to our mock tests. I would listen to YouTube videos. My attempt is very similar to reading, where I would listen to a part, summarize it in my head, and try to paraphrase it, try to use different versions, just like I explained in reading. Now, of course, here you're doing it very fast because listening is happening and new stuff is coming after each sentence. So you do it very fast. However, you want to try practicing memory. And I don't know why a lot of students don't do this. This is a very simple strategy. If you remember things, you will answer better. After an audio is done, stop. Don't go to the questions yet. This is just for practice at home. Now, tell yourself what was said, okay? Summarize everything that was said. Try to repeat everything. Don't look at your notes, just from your memory, whatever you can remember. Now, play the recording again. You will be surprised at how much you missed. Now, try it again, summarize it again, and so on. Now go to the next audio and try this again. So you are training your brain to remember a lot of the things that were said. If you remember and you have enough notes, a combination of these 2 things really helps you in answering the questions. So that's my go-to for listening. Let's move on to writing and speaking. For writing, obviously, everything you have written down is on your screen. You can look at it, edit it, and practice it. We're going to get into that right now. For speaking, it's a little bit different. You have to record yourself and then you have to play your recording and evaluate your response, improve on that. However, you can do that. It's just better to write it down on a piece of paper. Whatever you have spoken, write it down, okay? You can use a speech-to-text software. There's lots of free ones online. And when you play your recording, that will translate everything you're saying into text, and you will have your speaking on screen. So what we want to do is look at our sentences in writing and in speaking and observe them. Of course, in speaking, you have to observe a lot of things like your tone, clarity, expressions, and pauses and fluency. So make sure to check that as well. But for now, when you're practicing at home, this is my strategy that I use to improve everything that I'm saying and everything that I'm writing. For example, let's look at the sample sentence, and this could be your writing sentence or your speaking sentence. And it says, I don't like your restaurant's policy. You guys don't provide good food. I'll go somewhere else. This is what a lot of students write, and you would say it's free of mistakes, it should be 12. No, it's free of mistakes, yes, but it does not have anything complex. Vocabulary, adjectives, range, complex sentences, nothing. Let's see how we can edit that. First thing I want to see is if I can use adjectives and adverbs. So we're going to go step by step, and you'll see how the sentence becomes amazing by the end. I don't like your restaurant's policy. How about I say, I don't like your restaurant's outdated policy. Okay, that's an adjective. So it's going to add more range, and it's also going to add more description, which is going to help me in task response. You guys don't provide good food. It's not appropriate to say you guys. It's very informal, and it looks like a formal letter or email. So I'm going to say your restaurant, and then it's going to be does not provide good food. And also you should not use contractions in CELPIP, by the way. So it should be do not or does not. Provide good food. Okay, why don't we add more description? Provide good food to its customers. The more descriptive you are, the better. I'll go somewhere else. Okay, I will happily go somewhere else. This is an adverb. So now I have added adjectives, adverbs, and a little bit of description here, made the tone appropriate. Now it looks like I have a good range going on here. I don't have any complex words. Is there something I could do? Well, outdated is a good word. Policy, really no replacement. Good food. I mean, I want to replace good. Yeah, for sure. Does not provide high quality, or I want to say delicious food, but it doesn't sound like a complaint. It sounds like a good thing. So I would have to change my sentence structure, and I would say options just to make it fit more in the tone. It sounds better if I say your restaurant does not provide delicious food options, or I'm thinking mouth-watering food options, but again, that sounds positive, not negative. So it's an adjective. It's also more advanced than saying good. Don't ever use good or bad. They're very basic words. And there we go. Now, can we do something else? Let's see. I don't like your restaurant's outdated food policy and so on. Why don't I say hence here? By adding hence at the end, I'm using a connector that's going to give me marks for vocabulary. It's also going to give me marks for flow and structure because I'm breaking down everything. And there you go. There's also multiple variations I can do. I can also make this a complex sentence. I can say since here. Since you guys don't provide good food, I'm going to go happily to some other place. Okay? And looking at this actually, now that I read it, I'm going to say elsewhere because that is more advanced than saying somewhere else. Okay? So now my sentence has become more complex. It is fitting the criteria for the CELPIP exam. It's descriptive. It has a range. It has a variety of words. And it is, again, free of mistakes. Now I'm going to read it and I'm going to tell myself next time I write, this should be my way of writing. Next time I speak, this should be my way of speaking. And that's what you do to practice writing and speaking. Okay, guys, that's the end of this video. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you want to learn more of these strategies, it's simple. If you want a good score of 11 to 12, I have detailed everything you need to know in my course in the description. It's a 15-hour program. I simply follow all the methods there, and I score 11 or 12 every single time. So if you want to do the same thing, check it out, and it's at a 20% discount right now, so best time to avail it. Here is the CELPIP video that all of you have been waiting for the speaking module, the speaking templates. It's a new version. And again, these templates don't cover everything. Let me just tell you right now, this is something that everybody can use. But if you want the most detailed version of our templates with complex sentences and examples on how to use them correctly and what not to do with the templates, you got to check out our course. The link is in the description. That's where the entire detail is mentioned. But in this video, I'm going to cover the templates from mostly the surface level that will give you a very good direction and a structure, and you would know what to do in all your 8 speaking parts in the exam. So let's get started. Okay, the first question is about giving advice. So you have to talk to a person. Maybe it's suggesting something like getting a job. All right. Now, mostly it's informal. It could be formal too. So what you would do here is when you start, you would say, hey, Bob, if it's informal. If it's formal, instead of hey, you will just say hi or hello. Okay? You want to say a name, a real name. it might be given in the question, or it might not be, and in that case you should make it up. I always say Bob. Sometimes people are thinking about names in the exam and it's a waste of time. So just pick a name, a default name, one syllable, so you save time. Hey Bob, how's everything? The reason we say this, now everything here that is mentioned is for a reason, okay? So the reason we say it like this is because it's casual, it's informal, and mostly you have informal topics there. We don't usually even say how are you, right? We don't say that to our friends. So what's up is another one, but my fear there is it's too informal. And again, these templates have worked for our students really well. That's how I know these things. How's everything is just the best semi-formal way to start. Okay, so you start with that. Then you say listen. By the way, guys, listen is better than saying see. Okay, a lot of people use this. See, I want to tell you that, no, don't say that, because see is another word, right? It's like you want them to see something. Listen is actually listen to the next thing I'm about to say. So you say listen, pause there, okay? Don't just start right away. All the commas there mean that you have to pause. Listen, I know, and then add the topic here. Listen, I know that you have been looking for a job. It's a tough market out there, but I have some advice for you. I have some suggestions for you, and so on. So you repeat the question here basically. Listen, I know that whatever the situation is, and then you start. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, we want to keep it the same. This is the reason our students have been so successful. It's very organized this way. If you have looked at my lessons on connectors, I usually don't prefer them, but CELPIP loves them up to now. Their love for firstly, secondly, thirdly has not changed. So we're not going to change that. So you want to do still firstly, secondly, thirdly. You can also use this, and this is a slightly different tone. Instead of saying firstly, it's a sentence, which is going to give you good marks for the range, okay? So you say the first thing you should do is whatever, okay? First thing you should do is, and then go with your point. Usually it's a 20-second point. Look for some jobs online. There are these websites, blah, blah, blah. All right, secondly, and then your suggestion. Thirdly, and then your suggestion. You want to make 3 suggestions. Some people ask if 2 are enough. Yeah, but it's better if you do 3. People who score the best marks usually do 3. Okay. Bob, this is all right. Look at this finish. Bob, you say his name. Again, we're showing realism. It's important to show realism in the CELPIP speaking. So again, you repeat the name, Bob. Please, I put this in caps so you know you have to emphasize. People don't emphasize, and I hate that because you lose marks if you're monotone. So it's going to sound like this. Bob, please don't miss any of these suggestions. I trust you to follow this for your own sake. Again, the exclamation marks show emphasis. Catch up with you soon. Okay, make sure to also pause after these exclamation marks. And there you have it. You got a very informal finish, seems very realistic. It is exactly how people talk. It is exactly how friends talk. And just the perfect ending for that perfect answer that you can make. All right, again, you want to make sure your grammar and vocab and everything in between is good. All right, let's go with speaking 2. This is where you are supposed to talk about favorite thing, vacation, memory, person, whatever. Okay, I start with interestingly, because again, if you have seen my previous lessons, I always tell people you should have a range of vocab, which means using good adverbs. So lees are a part of that, and the next one we have is mainly. All right, so the more lees you use, the better it is. Okay, again, in our course, you see a complete description on all types of lees and every single place where you can use them to get the full marks. Again, link is in the description for that. Now, interestingly, I've never thought about whatever, okay? This is, again, a very natural start. It'll feel like it's coming naturally from you. Assume we're talking about a vacation. So interestingly, I have never thought about where I want to go for a vacation. Okay, you got your mark for interestingly. You have a very informal, very casual, very day-to-day beginning, very natural. And then you got a bunch of connectors, which are going to give you your marks for coherence and structure. So you're going to add a few points here, right? You're going to talk about the vacation, where it was, how much was it, and what did you enjoy, etc. All those points you can link with these connectors mainly. And of course, here you want to talk about the lengthiest point, okay? Because it's mainly, so it has to be the important point. And then you follow it up with also. Now again, we're later on going to be using some advanced connectors like likewise, and then there's another video we're going to do for the other 4 parts, and there we have furthermore likewise and stuff. So right now we're using a slightly lower, well, not lower, high frequency connector also, because we're going to mix it up later with the more extreme connectors like furthermore and formal ones. So this is all planned out. This is why we're showing the examiner at different places our range, okay? So here we're going to use also the best connector to put. It's also going to give you a quick flow to your next point. You finish it off with overall, okay? Overall, and then you sum it up, whatever you have said, in one sentence, okay? When you go to speaking 3, it's a picture. You describe a picture. You want to start with the picture portrays. And you could say here, you know, if you're not ready, you could say the picture portrays the scene off, and then you can talk about the scene. But it's, if you want to save time, just say the picture portrays and then the scene exactly. Like if the scene is of a classroom, the picture portrays students studying in a classroom. If you want to make it longer, the picture portrays the scene of students studying in a classroom. It really depends on if you're confident enough to just get into it, okay? In the foreground, it's very common, right? We use that, and again, CELPIP is in love with that, so keep using that in the foreground. That would cover everything in the front, and background will be the things in the back. One mistake people make is they don't use a connector when they move to the next sentence, and at this point you should, because it's almost in the middle of the speaking. So before you say in the background, say moreover in the background. That way it's a good connector that builds up. Finally would be the last thing you would say, and it's also a ly, okay? So it's more range of vocab there. In this part, we're not doing a conclusion. Like here you said overall, but here we're not gonna do it because we're gonna reserve it for speaking 4. We'll get to that right now. And the reason is, again, we're showing the examiner a range of expressions, structure, construction, and all that fancy stuff, okay? So here, when we do finally, we're kind of doing a conclusion, but we're not like wrapping up the whole picture. You're just saying finally, and one more thing within the picture is what you can describe. When you go to speaking 4, that's where we're going to do this one sentence. You can see at the end, copy paste, all right? All these templates are just copy paste. Use them confidently and naturally, and you're good. So we'll do it here and show the examiner that we can use different ways to conclude. We have that ability. Let's move to speaking 4. This is where you predict what's going to happen next. You start with considering, all right? This is the only complex sentence we have seen so far. Again, guys, this is a basic version, a very good way to improve your marks, but if you really are looking for the best ways to improve your marks, the most advanced version is in our course in the description. But this is one example of how you can start a complex sentence, okay? You use considering when you want to break down a sentence into 2 parts. So assume we're talking about the classroom. Now we're predicting as well. So you would start by saying, considering the teacher is not in the classroom, I believe the kids would start causing chaos in the next few minutes. All right, so you have 2 things here now. Teacher is not here, so this is what's going to happen. This will make it a complex sentence, a great way to start, and it will catch the examiner's attention too. Once again, everything is strategically placed here, because if you sometimes use complex sentences in the middle, examiners don't catch it. They're humans. This is, again, a human being marking your exam. So it's important to put it at the start at times to show the examiner, hey, give me mark right now. Your attention is maximum at the start. I used a complex sentence. I need my mark. Next is likewise. When you move on to the next part of the picture, use a good connector like likewise. And then you say, let's move on to what we're doing here is, you see, we have a range. We got the mainly, interestingly, we got normal connectors like also, moreover, likewise, and then we have a phrase. Let's move on to showing a range of connectors. All right, let's move on to the left side where we see whatever, okay? And when you finish, you want to finish with, these are the most probable actions taking place next. Probable is a fancier word, and that sentence alone is short, simple. At the end, people are usually rushing, so you need a short sentence at the end. Just wrap it up and just copy paste it, just memorize it, and you're all set, okay? CELPIP speaking templates that guarantee you a 9 or 10 plus if you simply copy paste these words in your exam. That's why it is called a template. This is a template for success. It includes the range of vocab, expressions, structure, and when you use these words and phrases, you would also notice this makes you finish on exactly the same time for the question that is given. And that's the beauty of these templates. They're organized in that way. So all you have to do is memorize the words and phrases you see on screen. And in this video, we're going to start with part 5 because parts 1 to 4 have already been covered in the previous video, which will be just before this one, which you can check out on our channel. In this part, though, we're going to start with part 5, and part 8 is very complicated. So stick around till the end to find out how to attempt that. And also stick around for our bonus offer at the end. It is something you will really like. All right, speaking 5 is where you compare two pictures. And when you're comparing two pictures, you're either talking to someone formal or informal. Anyone who is informal is your friends and family. Anyone who is formal is people who are not your friends or family. Remember that. Now, depending on the tone, whenever you see this, I mean depending on the formal or informal situation. We don't know who you will be talking to. So what you do is you say hello if it is a formal person, and you say hi if it is an informal person. A lot of people say hi to formal people as well, but it's not something I would say on my day 1 at work to my boss. I would say that on day 2 or 3. Hello is very neutral, so it's still the preferred choice for formal people, all right? And if you go too informal, you can also say hey, all right? That's one of the options that's not there, but just to keep it simple, hello, formal, hi, informal, all right? Now, you want to start with look or listen. That depends on the tone as well. If you are talking to someone who is informal, you would just say look. It's like you can force something on them. Because if you're comparing the choice of a sports bike versus a car for your brother, your younger brother, obviously you want to tell him to get the car, right? So you would want to be a little bit forceful. It's someone you know. Again, the question is comparing and persuasion. So you do want to have a little bit of commanding tone. So you can use look with informal situations. It is an informal word as well. Listen, though, is more neutral, and you can use that respectfully with someone like your boss or some colleague if it is formal. And then you would talk about the two options. Here you have to be a little diplomatic. You would start by saying, listen, I understand you really want this thing, but I think we ought to consider this option, or we got to talk about this other option. Okay, so this is how you start your first sentence. After the hello and hi, you start with listen or look. I know you want this, but I want this. Again, I couldn't write anything here because it really depends on the picture you're dealing with. Again, it depends on the picture. All the points, you cannot really put anything in templates because the picture is always different. But what you can use and memorize are connectors like these. However, nonetheless and nevertheless. Now, I prefer you use nonetheless and nevertheless before, for obvious reasons. I mean, they're more complex, so they're going to give you more marks for vocabulary. But if you come up with another sentence where you're comparing things, you say however, and it's simple. It's just this covers this, your option has this, nonetheless, we have this here. Nevertheless, my option has this, etc. Okay? And those are going to be your connectors in this speaking. Again, what I wanted to emphasize, I wanted to make sure I say this because I don't want to forget to tell you, make sure you compare, please compare both options. Don't just talk about your option, you have to compare the other one too. You will lose marks if you just talk about your option. And that's why you have these connectors, because you're literally compare feature versus feature. And you finish with what are your thoughts? Simple, you can do this for formal or informal situations. And what are your thoughts is a quick conclusion, and it needs to be quick here because speaking 5 is very lengthy and you're only given a minute. You're also supposed to, it's better if you do this, cover all the points, all points on your picture and all points on your opponent's picture. And if you say all those things effectively, you can do that in 1 minute, and we have a video on how to do that as well. But you will be running out of time, so you want to finish with 4 words only. What are your thoughts? Okay, you don't want to say a lengthy thing, let me know what you think and take care, and no, just what are your thoughts, end. All right, it'll keep it short, simple, good comparison, good vocab, and to the point, and great start and great finish. Let's move on to speaking 6. This is again hello for formal or hi for informal people. Depends on the situation. Usually you have to explain a difficult situation or position here. So you start with showing empathy. You say, I understand that you, and it could be like you were invited by 2 people and you're saying no to one of them. So it could be something like, I understand that you really want to be at the party and we have been great friends, but look, it's this situation and I can't attend and so on. So you make up the story here. This is a great way to start because you want to acknowledge the other person. A lot of times I see people being a little rude here. This is called explaining a difficult situation for a reason, because it's supposed to be difficult. You have to use empathy or ability to sympathize with the other person to answer your question. But people just say sometimes, I cannot come to your party. Yeah, just like go away, don't invite me again. But you want to make sure you address the other person. I understand that you, and you tell their position, but here is what I have. Here's my problem. Next sentence would be, I cannot apologize enough for this, but so on. So instead of you just saying, I'm sorry, or my apologies, you are using a fancier structure, fancier phrasing. I cannot apologize enough for this. It is rarely used, these kinds of words and phrases. So you use them. That's exactly what is going to give you marks. And you finish with hopefully. Again, you know why, because lees give you marks. Hopefully, interestingly, surprisingly, lees are rarely used, so you should use them. And you say hopefully you're able to. And here again, it's showing empathy or that emotion. You're able to forgive me, you're able to understand, you're able to come to terms with whatever. Okay, that's it. So this is all about showing the emotion, describing the difficult situation in a nice way, using apology, using good words. And that's enough. All right, 4 main things you want to memorize. Coming to speaking 7. Now here is where you give an opinion and you pick one side, you talk about that side. Please do not take both sides. You are supposed to talk only about one. Okay, here we start with the topic of whatever is extremely contentious. Instead of me saying it's controversial or debatable, we're going to say contentious because it is going to give you the range of vocab. It is more advanced than simply saying, it's confusing or something. You would say it's contentious. So we're using more advanced wordings here. However, and I use this however here again because we have nonetheless and nevertheless here. So my guess is when you're doing speaking 5, you wouldn't have time to say all 3. You would probably use these 2. So if I use that again, even though it's complex, it would be repetition down here. And examiners are looking at that. So I put however here, okay? Also, by doing however in the middle of the sentence, we're making this whole sentence complex. Look how big the sentence is. The topic of whatever is extremely contentious. However, if I were to choose, whatever would be my pick. It's a long, complex sentence. As I said before, show the examiner the long, complex sentence at the start. Get your marks for the complex sentence. Okay? So a very good start, very good first impression. Now let's get into it. This is because, so again, CELPIP loves firstly, secondly, thirdly. We have kept the same format. But earlier on, if you saw part 1 of this video, in the first question, we said the first thing is. So I don't want to repeat that same approach. We're going to start with this is because. It builds a good flow from your previous opinion sentence, and then it talks about the first point, then the second and the third point, and that's it. You wrap it up. First, secondly, thirdly, or the 3 points, that's the best approach. You can also do 2, but 3 are always highly suggested. Everybody who gets a good mark, like over 10, would do 3. I would say 9 or 10, maybe 2 points, okay? Again, depends on a lot of other factors, but I would strongly suggest 3. Speaking 8 is always different. It could be, it could be a situation like you have to define a picture. It could be you asking for help. It could be you complaining about something. It is so difficult to make a template for this, but we have one here, which can be applied in a lot of situations. Once again, the template covered here, as well as the other templates, are not 100% in detail. If you want to check out the best versions, check out the course in the description. But here is a general outline, as I mentioned. You want to start with hello, how are you? All right, greet the person, or if it's informal, you can also say hello. It is neutral, but better you say, hey, how are you? You could also address the person, right? Bob, how are you? Hey, sis, how's it going? Okay, really depends. Again, it could be any situation here. Now we start with, I have to share something interesting with you. That's one way. There's something I need to let you in on if you're trying to tell them a secret or trying to give them some information that they didn't know at first. Or the third way is, I'm afraid I'm reaching out for a favor if you're asking for a favor. Okay? It depends. It could be any of the situations, and there could be more. All right? But these 3 sentences can cover most of the situations. They have fancier words instead of common day words. Instead of you saying, I would like to tell you about, use these words. They're way, way, way better. All right? Now I said here, describe the picture, because now we don't really know what the picture is going to be. It could be 10,000 different things. So describe the picture. Just keep in mind, use connectors. Moreover, likewise and similarly, you can see we did not use too many of them at the start or in the previous questions because we reserved them for this part. Advanced connectors, you can also say furthermore, accordingly, those kinds of things. Used advanced ones to connect your points. And I'm gonna, if it's informal, or going to, if it's formal, I'm gonna finish up by saying, and whatever you have to say. Again, depending on the situation, you can change it, but this is something that can mostly be applied in all speaking questions. I'm gonna finish up by saying, you did a great job here, or I'm gonna finish up by saying, these are my overall thoughts, whatever the picture says. Okay, so that will help you answer most types of speaking aid questions. There could still be some odd choices that might not be, where these templates might not be applicable, because speaking question 8 is always very different. But you can be confident that the other questions will definitely fit all the criteria, and 90% chance all the words here will be good enough for speaking part 8 as well. What you got to do now is copy paste these in your practice at home from your brain, of course not in writing. So memorize them and practice them repeatedly to get the best marks in the exam. And make sure to repeat again and again these words, because people read them, they practice it in front of them when they're answering questions, but in the exam they forget it. So you have to repeat to memorize all these words and phrases. And once you start applying them, you will notice you're finishing everything on time, which is wonderful. If you want to see more examples of these kinds of templates and how to use them in all types of questions, and what not to do when practicing with these templates, what to do, check out our course in the description. It also comes with 15 hours of video lessons, 5 mock tests that reflect the real exam, and a bonus accent training course, and a lot more things. There's a vocab list as well, the words you need to memorize before your exam. Check it all out. It's at a 20% discount right now. And if you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, which means you don't lose anything after purchasing the course. It's all quickly accessible online. And again, it'll be sent to your email immediately after your purchase. Use the coupon code CEL9, CEL9, and you'll receive a 20% discount. So avail it now while the offer lasts. And if you have any questions, our email is in the description as well. And if you liked this video, please share it with your friends who might be doing the CELPIP exam as well. Please subscribe and take care. Best of luck for your exam.